Well, it's time for episode 206 of the 3 Point Podcast. Our starting lineup includes Crow Real Estate and Auction, Rivals Tap House and Grill, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, the ALS Association of Michigan, and the WASH, I should say, of Owasso. And by the way, I got a few other sponsors. I just want to throw their names out real quick because they participated in the special 3 Point Podcast game we did on Saturday night. Freeland and Pewamo, Westphalia. A good game, by the way. Talk about that just a little bit, but I want to thank the folks at Miller's Tavern and Fowler in Westphalia, Ox's Smoked Meats, the Little Flower Market in Westphalia, Village Smiles Dentistry in Westphalia, and Woods Deli in Pewamo. And you know, guys, we talked about a little bit on the off the air here, but this old sports guy had a kind of a rough go of it the last 3 games we put out there. I had a chance to let Casey Smith do his play-by-play debut against the Owasso and girls basketball game. He did really well, I think, for the first time out. But wouldn't you know it, the recording gods weren't working with me and only could get the first half. Then the Owasso Corona boys game, the Owasso Corona boys game on on the Castle. They failed to record it at the studios, and the only option we had was this most god-awful sounding airing of the game from our cable access channel. So I apologize to anybody out there for that one. And then Saturday night, after all the problems on Friday night, we had to go to option number 3 on getting the game on the air. And it was at least reasonably airable. You could hear everything. My partner Joe, his mic was a little low, but it was just a hellish weekend for the old sports guy. Hopefully things will be looking up.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate technology like both ways. That there's this many options that it probably used to be like there's only one option. If that didn't work, you're kind of SOL. But done. Now you get to go to 2, 3, 4 options, even just using your phone to record it. But also, anyone who works in any sort of field that you use technology or, whatever, which is basically everything, it fails a lot. I mean, sometimes like stuff just doesn't work and, people get pissed off or, they start complaining. I mean, just talking about my work at ESPN, sometimes the feed goes out or a mic goes out. And then you see on Twitter, obviously it's blowing up, ESPN sucks, blah, blah, blah. And you just, you just don't think about like sometimes technology just doesn't work. So kind of like your car, Jared.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like stuff just doesn't work sometimes. So.
And I'll say something as simple as these feeds or whatever at ESPN or just recording this broadcast. I feel like at least when I'm like at work, it's like I feel like stuff is way more complicated than you think it would be. Like something as simple as, hey, let's just record. Let's get this record of the Utah Jazz game like sent to ESPN or whatever. Like they have to do like 3. Like that's somebody's job for like 20 minutes setting that up. That stupid feed, feeding it, routing it, sending it back. Like you think it's simple, but apparently not. Apparently not for Ted. Even though all you have to do put a phone in front of your mouth and just talk into it. I mean, everyone's got a like recording device nowadays. What was so hard about that? I guess.
Well, no, I mean, I could have done it that way, but then you're passing the phone back and forth between Joe and me. I actually had 2 miniature microphones plugged into my phone, and his just obviously wasn't hot enough, or I didn't do a good enough test on it. But that'll be my backup from now on, anyway. Is just record it on my phone. That's the first time I've tried it, and it actually works pretty good, and plenty of memory there on the iPhone. So that will definitely be my backup from now on. But, these things do happen. And what's funny, fellas, we post these games on our podcast site, and it's amazing how many listens we get. And I obviously know that from the Corona Owasso game because I got, let's just say a few texts and a few Facebook responses. What happened? What's going on? You know? So
that was your white whale, and it got messed up. The white whale of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved it because back in my playing days, now 20 years ago, if there was some sort of website or something that would post your calls, because you called a ton of our football games and even a bunch of our basketball games. If there was some site that would post them later, even the day or 2 later, I definitely would have listened to them. In fact, I have on cassette tape all of our football games that you called. My parents or something for Christmas went and had you, put them all to cassette tape for me. And so I have all of those, and it is cool, like to hear it. It almost makes you feel like you're like a college football player, like or like even an NBA player. You got like a radio call of your basketball game.
You're right.
And especially even for friends or family who live out of state or, live wherever, don't get to go to the game. Yeah, they know the outcome of the game. They know the stats or whatever, but to go back and listen, it is kind of cool. So yeah, we've gotten actually like a fair amount of feedback from people, like old alums who still like to keep up on Corona sports or whatever games you're doing. So it is cool.
Well, anyway,
and we're not. Sorry, but we're not the most technically sound. If you remember, like I think it was like one of our first episodes, Matt. It was like the first episode Matt couldn't be with us to record. Me and Ted did like a hour 15, just talking about who knows what. Looked down and realized that there's like a music box speaker that's like been playing music right into the mic the entire show, and we tried listening to it back, and it was totally unusable. And we had to just totally re-record it. I have a question for you, Ted, real quick, while we're talking about your play-by-play days.
Yeah.
Last night, and we're actually going to talk about this in a little bit, but I'll just throw it out as a teaser. Last night, Kelly Olynyk hits a game winner for the Pistons against Charlotte Hornets, snaps a 15-game losing streak to the Hornets, believe it or not. But when he did it, the Charlotte Hornets announcer, people love him. He's the guy that always loses his mind over the LaMelo Ball highlights. He basically lost his mind over Kelly Olynyk making this shot. What do you think if you're a homer, you're doing a Corona game, and somebody hits a buzzer beater? It might be a little bit different for high school sports. Imagine you were a play-by-play for a professional team. Do you think it's okay to be excited for another team's like opposing game winner?
Well, first of all, let me ask you this because I'm a little out of the loop. Was he excited in a positive way on the Pistons hitting the game winner, or was he like a big downer that it was?
No, not. I didn't think it was a downer. He screamed Olynyk, and I think he had a couple other comments after a few seconds had passed, but I thought it was positive.
Okay.
It wasn't like totally like acting like the Hornets. He wasn't sad. It didn't sound like.
No, I think that's, if you're asking my opinion on it, I think that's absolutely the way to be. I mean, you hear some of these college football announcers that are the home announcers, they get depressed. I mean, they're just bummed out when the opposing team hits a winning field goal or something like that. But no, in the NBA and a call like that, and in basketball, if you can't get excited, even if it's the opposing team, you probably shouldn't even be in it.
It's the classic Hawk Harrelson, who used to do the White Sox. If the opposing team hit a walk-off home run, he just wouldn't say a word. He would just let the broadcast go and then sign off. So yeah, it is funny. People around here love. I'm blanking on his name right now, but people around here love the dude who calls the Hornets games just because of that. He's almost like Gus Johnson,
right?
Like after he drank 10 5-hour energies, like as energetic as Gus Johnson is, this dude's even more. But yeah, you're talking about the Pistons. I had to do an NBA game last night. We did the Mavericks and Warriors, and for anyone who didn't see, like, the Warriors they went up like 25 in the second quarter, to the point where the producer, like, this is some behind the scenes stuff. The producer starts talking about, all right, we're going to have to start getting some stuff ready for a blowout. You start thinking about looking ahead, talking about the playoffs, what kind of stuff, you always have these things prepared for, like, inside stories about, like Steph winning All-Star Game MVP, or if there's some records that are going to be broken. He was going to break some like steals record by Chris Mullin for the Warriors. So you have all this stuff prepared for when it's a blowout and the game's just boring, obviously. But come fourth quarter, because it's the NBA, the Mavs come storming back and actually end up winning the game. And it was like an incredible game. So it's one of those things. It's fun, like, as a sports fan anyway, to like see the behind the scenes stuff, a blowout starting to happen. And, the wheels start turning about how are we going to actually still keep this game interesting. And then all of a sudden the Mavs start storming back or whatever. It's just, it is crazy in the NBA. Like, teams can get up 20-25 and it doesn't matter. And it's crazy. Like you said, Jared, I forgot, didn't realize, whatever. The Pistons run a 15-game losing streak to the Hornets. That's insane. The Pistons haven't been good for a little while, obviously, but to lose 15 straight to one team in the NBA, that's like, you almost have to try to do that. That's
and it's not like it's the Lakers or something. It's the freaking Hornets. Like, they were not that good. I saw it was a tweet that basically said the last time we beat them, it was like Reggie Jackson was our starting point guard. So that's like 5 years ago. But yeah, so that kind of just teased me right off for my catch up. This is almost a sales pitch in a way. I just want you guys to view this with an open mind. What is happening before my eyes. So last week, I'm not going to throw out who he is. He's anonymous. That's what makes him so special. Anonymous guy that I know places a $50 free bet, 6-leg parlay, plus 12,000 odds the other day. His biggest bet was Pistons money line plus 600 versus the Celtics. So the days goes on. This bet wins. This bet wins. This bet wins. This bet wins. He's got one left, and it's the Nuggets, it's the Nuggets versus the Warriors, I believe. And it was our man from Flint Beecher, Monty Morris, who hit a game-winning 3 to win this guy, my friend, $6,000. So he turned 50 into $6,000. Okay, now fast forward to last night. I'm talking to this guy. He places another bet. Plus like 800. It was Pistons money line, and like we just laid out, they lost 15 straight times to the Hornets. Pistons money line, the over, like some other player prop. It hits again. This guy is on an unreal heater, and let's just say I'm going to see this guy tomorrow, and whatever bet he places, I'm following it. And I just was wondering if you guys want me to send it your way and follow along.
See, you get to the point where is the heater coming to an end?
Exactly.
Like how long do you ride it? Should he just like cash out and say I'm good? It's kind of like the Hornets and Pistons thing. Like, at some point the Pistons are going to beat the Hornets. It's like when you're playing roulette and it's hitting red, 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 red. You're like, all right, it's time to bet black.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's going to hit red again. Maybe it's going to hit red again.
Yeah.
So that's crazy though. $50 into $6,000.
Wow. Dude, this guy is lighting it up. And let's just say he's making about as much money as I am. So that's a lot of money he just made. But no, how do you not? I mean, here's the way I look at it. Man, if this guy places another bet tomorrow and it hits, how dumb are you going to feel? And how dumb would I feel if for the second straight time I did not follow this guy?
Well, I won't feel as dumb as you because I don't know the guy. And I also I'm very conservative. So I've kind of along the lines of Matt that, hey, the dude's luck's got to run out. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if you don't jump in, you're going to kick yourself in the ass afterwards, right? So do you know what the bet is yet? Or
No, I'm walking in. I'm going to see him on Tuesday. Or tomorrow. And I'm going to say, what do you got for me today? Whatever. I'm not even going to question it. Whatever he says is where I'm going.
All right.
I don't know. He's just a wizard. And
sometimes you get lucky too, though.
You do. I mean, 100%. If you're winning a plus 12,000 6-leg parlay, there's some luck involved on one Saturday. But I don't know, man. I'm just telling you, there's like a tingle in my spine. This guy's got some magic, and I just felt the need to share it, not only to you, but potentially to listeners who I'll tweet it out tomorrow when I was going to say, you're going to want to follow this. I'm trying to help you.
Okay.
Ted, I'm trying to make it so your retirement isn't spent in your basement. It's spent in Arizona like you were planning.
Yeah. Are you also thinking maybe I ought to buy some real good broadcasting equipment too that is fail safe?
I think you could have the nicest equipment in the world and have your own technician setting it up and probably still fail. It seems like there's a new problem with these broadcasts every other week.
It probably is the boomer in me. Who knows, But you brought up a good point, Jared, about the Pistons and getting the big win yesterday. And we haven't really talked a lot about the Pistons. We've talked a little bit about NBA basketball and, the Lakers. We can get into that in a little bit. It looks like LeBron is fading maybe a little bit on carrying a team on his back. But the Pistons, what are we thinking right now? They got that win yesterday, but it's been a tough season, and they still have maybe another piece or two to get to. Is Casey going to ride out the storm, do you think? And do you think the Pistons really, with the way they played this year, with the youth they have, are a team really to look at on the upswing? Especially you, Jared, working for Bally Sports. You see them all the time.
So I'll be honest. I think Coach Casey will be here next year. I think Coach Casey is a good coach. It's just, it's just like any other NBA, or we might be seeing it right now with Campbell for the Lions, where if you don't have the talent, like there's really you can't fake it. Every coach is pretty damn good in the NFL. Every coach is pretty damn good in the NBA. But no, I love this team. I mean, they haven't been getting much pub, obviously, because of their record. But a lot of that was due. I mean, they started so cold. Like, I want to say they were, like 20 games below 500 in the first like 20, 25 games. Like, they started ice cold. But from there, I mean, we've seen a lot of like flowers that are maybe starting to blossom. I mean, Cade Cunningham, if you haven't watched Pistons, I really do think he's the real deal. I mean, every game he's putting up, 15, 7 and 7. And he runs the entire offense. The Pistons offense entirely is run through him. So I'm sold on him. And then you have Saddiq Bey, who's 5th in total 3-pointers made this far through his career in this many games of all time, of any player that's ever played in the NBA. Just an absolute sharpshooter. And then we all know about Isaiah Stewart. Clearly has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Maybe not the best player, but he's just a guy that if he's in the NBA, I want him on my team because he's electric. And then finally, last player that I think is a real point of pride is Hamidou Diallo. The guy did not play the first 25 games of the year due to disciplinary issues, maybe some problems with Coach Casey. But once he finally broke the lineup, dude, this guy's been balling out. And if you don't know him, the guy is the definition of my term that I like to call a super athlete, where he's dunking everything, stealing everything, plays a million miles an hour. So I think the Pistons got a lot to build off of. And I think next year, I really do think it's playoffs or bust. Whether that's a play-in game, 100% they need to be in the playoffs next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the whole Coach Casey, when he came to the Pistons, he was the NBA Coach of the Year. And, some people kind of forget that. But with that award, I mean, he had the perfect recipe. He had Kawhi and Kyle Lowry and, the Raptors were just stacked. So he won that award. He doesn't have that in Detroit. So you're kind of seeing like, maybe does he have the coaching chops to actually like build a team? I think he's a good coach. So we'll see. Cade Cunningham definitely, he almost has that. You wonder if he's going to have like that Ja Morant turning around the Grizzlies. Will Cade Cunningham be able to do that with the Pistons? You have to have other good players. In the NBA, that's just how it is now. You see Harden bouncing around all the place. You see Kevin Durant leaving the Warriors to go play with Kyrie Irving and AD and LeBron. Ted, you brought him up. Like you have in the NBA, you have to have 2 or 3 legitimate stars to actually contend. I mean, you look at the Blazers have Damian Lillard, who's one of the best point guards ever, and they essentially haven't been able to do anything because their second best player this whole time has been CJ McCollum, who's good, but he's not Kevin Durant or he's not some of these other guys. So that's the big thing with the Pistons. Cade Cunningham's legit. If you can keep him, you've got Stewart. What are they going to do with Jeremy Grant? It seems like he might go. If you got Bey, Diallo, so you've got some other solid role players. So now who are you going to pair with Cade Cunningham and actually become a legitimate contender? Because the way they're built right now, they're not competing with the Bucks. They're not competing with the Nets.
No.
They're not competing with the Heat. They've got to build some team, get some guys around Cade Cunningham. And to that point, how are they going to get another star to come to Detroit? Like that's the second part of it. You've got to convince some other superstar that Cade Cunningham's legit. Come here and you can play with Cade Cunningham and these other role players. We've got a good coach and you can contend in the East. Like that's what it all is. Because if you can't get someone like a James Harden or, something like that to come play with Cade Cunningham, I mean, you're gambling on hoping a draft pick. I mean, they're going to have a top draft pick. You're hoping that another draft pick is going to be a star.
Yeah.
And, which could happen. Who knows? It could happen, but it hasn't happened for the Pistons in quite a while. So
are they looking right now top 5 pick? I mean,
they're third right now. Only a
okay.
game out of the number 1 pick. Actually, if they would have lost yesterday, they'd be the number 1 pick.
Oh wow!
A few of the guys.
There's
Basically, it's the top
players.
3. It's
the
the top
some
3
good players
that
in college. So
Jabari Smith, which I'm sure Matt knows a lot about. We're at SEC Network. Guy's a stud at Auburn.
Yep.
He was so I've recently kind of dove into college basketball. He's been my number 1. Like, who the hell was this guy? How did I not know about him a few weeks ago? Stud.
Yep.
Almost reminds me of like Kevin Durant type or Evan Mobley. Just super long, can stroke it. There's Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga, almost like a unicorn, sort of like a Porzingis type guy where we don't really know if he's going to be the best NBA player ever or maybe not that good. And then there's also Rancho from Duke. So there's 3 studs that I would love any one of them on my team. Yep.
What about the kid from UCLA that put the dagger in Michigan last year?
That's what's weird is like, no, Juzang isn't very high.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always thought, like, people always talk about how hard it is to like draft in the NBA, but then you see things like Fred VanVleet was never drafted. Whereas like if we were GMs, we would just be like, dude, did you watch this guy in college? Like he was a stud. Like let's draft him. But they draft on upside. That's basically all they draft on, and obviously they're wrong a lot of the times. So no, I don't even think Juzang is anywhere near the lottery.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like even like I mean Hunter Dickinson's he's still having a really good season. He's not maybe having the season that some people expected. He's actually like falling off draft boards to the point where people are starting to wonder if he's going to come back to Michigan next year because of it.
Yeah.
But the NBA, the NBA draft out of any, I mean, they all are, I guess, but it's such a crapshoot. You have no idea how some of these guys are going to pan out. I mean, Zion's supposed to be like the biggest can't miss draft pick in 20 years. Obviously there's health issues, but that hasn't panned out. And, so all the guys you're lifting, Jabari Smith looks every bit the part that he's going to be an absolute stud, but we'll see. The Chet Holmgren thing, actually I did the Gonzaga game Friday night, and that kid, like he's, like you said, he's a unicorn. He's 7 foot 190, 7 feet 190. I mean, he's got all the like skills. He can handle the ball. He can shoot a little bit, but even in college, he's getting pushed around. They lost to St. Mary's, that was actually Saturday. That was Saturday night. They lost to St. Mary's, and so you just wonder how's that going to translate to the NBA when he's having to guard guys like Embiid and Jokic and stuff like that. So, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, it is key. The Pistons really do have to get at least another star player to go with Cunningham as they continue this rebuild. And we know that any team that's going to contend for an NBA championship, you really got to have a big three. You got to have almost three superstars to contend for the championship. And, one of the biggest superstars, I kind of set it up a little bit at the beginning, is LeBron James. Obviously, you can't shortchange anything in his career, but I think I saw something today on Twitter. Some sports writer or somebody said, it's starting to look like when Michael Jordan was winding down his career with the Wizards. Yeah, he put up 20 points a game, but you could see that, Father Time is finally catching up.
I'll agree. Yes. Well, I remember, so I was actually in an argument with one of my friends last playoffs when the Lakers lost to the Suns and Jay Crowder was dancing in front of LeBron's face, basically just embarrassing him. And I said it at the time, I was like, dude, this guy is not who he used to be. That wouldn't have happened. The way they went out in that series, if you remember, they basically rolled over, lost in 6 after being up 2-0. They rolled over after that when Anthony Davis got hurt and everything. But no, I think it's all his own damn fault. This whole Russell Westbrook thing, everyone tried to tell him that it wasn't going to work, and he felt the need to do it anyway. I mean, if they had their current Lakers team constructed from last year and maybe a little bit better health with AD, I still think that they are a top 3 team in the West. But injuries and just flat out bad LeBron GM moves had put him in this place. And I do think that he's waning in his career where he can't go out and score 40 every night like he used to. Do I think he can do that in a one-off game 7 play-in tournament or something like that? Can he still be the best player on the floor in basically any game? Yes. But it's definitely not the LeBron we're used to. I think it's a really big stretch to compare him to Michael Jordan with the Wizards. But no, I still think I think it's honestly basically comparable to what Jordan was in 98. Jordan just happened to have a great team around him still, so they still could make it.
Yeah, I definitely think if Anthony Davis was fully healthy, and I agree, if they wouldn't have signed Russell Westbrook and they would have kept Caruso, they were going to trade for Buddy Hield. They could have kept a couple other guys, even Kyle Kuzma. The big thing is if Anthony Davis was healthy and he could carry the load. I don't see the LeBron and the Michael Jordan with the Wizards because LeBron can still play. The thing that's funny is he has set the bar so high that it's when he has a little bit of a bad stretch, people immediately go to, his career's over. It's this dude's been playing since he was 18 years old in the NBA, basically making the playoffs every season of his career. At some point, yes, he was going to slow down a little bit. I wonder too if, he went to LA, he wanted to play for the Lakers and he wanted to, he's thinking about his life after basketball with the whole movie productions and, all that stuff. I wonder if living in LA is actually getting to him a little bit too, in a good way. He's starting to be a little over basketball. Obviously, he still loves it. He's committed to it and all that stuff. But like, you almost wonder if he's like, actually, this LA life, making movies and being in TV commercials and stuff is actually pretty nice. I wonder if that's happening. But he has said that he wants to play one season with Bronny.
Yeah.
And Bronny's a junior right now. So if they don't lift the one and done rule and he has to go to college for a year, you know, whatever, the G League or whatever he's going to do, that's like what? So that's like 3 years from now that Bronny's going to be in the NBA. So LeBron's got, if he really means that, which it seems like he does, he's got to try and stick it out for 2 or 3 more seasons. And
can we talk about the Bronny thing? One, we keep hearing about Bronny. Has anyone seen like a high school highlight of this guy? And I haven't seen one in a long time. And you know, he is a kid, so I'm not going to jump down that route. But when your own dad is basically saying, you know, you're going to be in the NBA in a few years, it's kind of like it's opening me up to then go see like, hey, is this kid really that good?
Right.
I tried looking up his stats. Sierra Canyon's coach doesn't post their stats. And when I hear that, I think, why the hell is that the case? And so you can't find this guy's stats. He went from a 5-star he's down to a 4-star now. Yeah. He's only 6'4", and he's a small guy. It's not like he's built like LeBron. He can't really shoot it that well. It's weird that LeBron is saying this about his son when if you follow his son on social media, his son is like a gamer. He loves Fortnite, like if I'm Bronny, why am I grinding in the gym when I'm already got 7 million followers on Instagram?
Wow.
And I can play. I already have a professional gamer contract. Like what? I don't blame him for maybe not caring as much as his dad did when he was a kid. Like just play video games the rest of your life. What are you doing trying to make it in the NBA?
I mean, the one thing is just because of his name, he's going to get a shot.
Yeah.
Even if it's in the G League, you know, like someone's going to draft him. Someone's going to sign him, even to sell tickets. Hope that maybe like when he turns 23, 24, he, you know, maybe grows into his body or whatever and develops a game. Someone's going to give him a shot. So it's kind of like, may as well do it for a few years. And if, by the time he's 25, he kind of flames out. All right. Yeah. Go be a social media influencer and play Fortnite the rest of your life.
Why not do it? LeBron's already said he's going to basically follow him. If I'm the Pistons, hey, let's bring him in for a year, have him mentor Cade Cunningham and some of these other younger guys, probably make a decent playoff run, and then shake hands, and we're done.
Yep.
You know, it's not bad in theory. I guess, you know, I'm gonna go back to, you know, number one, we got to find out for sure if Bronny is a legit NBA player when we get to that time. That's the jury's still out. Obviously, if LeBron wants to 3 years from now, he's going to be good enough to make an NBA roster. I think we could all agree. Yeah. And if he takes a low salary just to play with his kid, hey, good for him. You know, any NBA team would take LeBron James at any shape or form 2 or 3 years down the road. But, you know, I just think about guys like Bronny and these, you know, these kids that come up and their dad is a superstar, right? All the pressure that just goes with that, trying to live up to it. I'm really surprised that who's the kid? I'm drawing a blank right now, but the guy that had all the hype and his son's Ball, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't a superstar. Ball wasn't a superstar, but he did put a lot of pressure on those kids to make it. And apparently, you know, a couple are doing all right. Yeah, 2 of them did. But I'm a little concerned about Bronny and the whole pressure on him. And, you know, when you talk about LeBron and living the life in LA, can't blame the guy because just think of all the pressure he's had for 20 years, right?
Really, because when he was I think that he made the Sports Illustrated cover when he was a sophomore, I believe, in high school as the next chosen one or whatever. So basically his whole life.
To be honest, yeah. I think he's in the point of his career where he's just like padding his stats. I mean, he's got all these different career milestones that
he got the ring with the Lakers. So
he's got nothing more to prove. I mean, we saw it. They lost the heartbreaker. The very next day he's at the Super Bowl, you know, partying his ass off. So
dancing up a storm.
So no, I don't think he cares. One thing I want to throw out in the NBA realm that I was actually debating about yesterday. I saw a tweet that basically said this dad told this beat reporter or whoever this basketball guy was that he spends $4,500 a year on his son for AAU basketball. Ted, I just want to ask you first.
Okay.
Because your opinion will be interesting because you've never even dealt with AAU. And then Matt, this could very well be your your life in 12 years. So, Ted, I guess you first.
You want my opinion on the whole
the spending and just the AAU in general?
I'm not against AAU. Okay, I think it's okay off season if you want to play AAU basketball, let's say in the summertime, and not have anything to do with the high school season. I'm okay with that. But when they interfere and it becomes the number one priority, to play AAU ball, and you have to play AAU ball before you're even going to get a chance on your varsity high school team, then I draw the line there. I mean, there are some good things about it, but this is the old school part of me. And you guys know how I stand on this, going back to there's just way too much specialization in my mind right now. I think when you're a kid, I mean, whether it be in the classroom or whether it be on the athletic field, you need time to just chill out, get away from it, relax a little bit, move, play multiple sports, don't specialize. And I think it's been proven that the top athletes in the NBA, NFL, MLB, they are multi-sport players when they were in high school. So, the whole AAU thing and spending that kind of money, and I think it is a generational thing too, where I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not saying it's good, but parents nowadays feel obligated that they have to be at every single event of their kid, including their practices. And I'm not so sure that's the healthiest thing in the world.
Yeah. I think being at the games is different when
Right.
you have the parents that have to be at every practice also.
Right.
It is kind of like, man, I appreciate your commitment to your kids, but give them a little bit of space. This is we could probably do a whole podcast on this.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like really interesting. Like when I was coming through middle school, high school is when AAU, so like, late 90s, early 2000s was really starting to take off. And like to the point where, I mean, Jared, your dad, with basketball, we would talk about like we did the Flint League in the summer. There was a Flint League that we would go play. And it was essentially AAU. It wasn't AAU, but it was an organized Flint League that our basketball team in the summer, we would go play games. And that's kind of like where it was really kind of starting to pick up and people would start playing for these AAU leagues. And so like for me, like seeing it kind of start, like when I was going through, it was almost like you only did that one if you were rich or if you were going to be like LeBron James or something, like that's the only way you did it. It's just, it bothers me because I like the specialist. I played 3 sports. I think there's so much value in that. I agree 100% with you, Ted. You see it and you hear people talk about like the skills that you build. Say you're playing soccer, that, the skills that you build in soccer translate to basketball or football or whatever. Like if you only play one sport, you're like not building your body up, and all your other muscle memory and all these other like skills that you could develop. So I don't understand that. It's kind of back to the Bronny thing. Also, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Does he play other sports?
I don't think so. No, just
NBA
basketball.
2K, so like, so is that really helping his basketball game? Probably not. And like the cost thing, I was talking to one of my, a guy I work with, his kid is into hockey. And hockey is just like insanely expensive. And luckily he said their community, like their hockey community, they're really good about hand-me-down. Like when one kid, like, grows out of stuff, they'll like go down to the next team and be like, hey, I got some skates, some goalie gear, whatever. They figure that stuff out. So that's cool. But he was saying, I forget the cost for the season. I want to say it was running up around 10 grand when he built in the gear, the
ice
renting,
time.
the ice time, just the fees for the league, paying the coaches, because a lot of these leagues, the parents pay the coaches. So it's not like it's a school system paying the coaches, it's the parents, all of that. But also he said a lot of their games were during school hours. So you had to pull your kid from school to go play in these hockey games because that's when they could get the ice time. Down here in North Carolina, there's not as much ice as there is, up in Michigan. So that's part of it. But so all of that combined, and he was like, if my kid didn't absolutely love playing hockey, there's no way we would be doing this. But he loves it. His friends play, so we do it. But it's getting out of control, to the point where you wonder, like Imani Bates is almost like a perfect example. He was supposed to be the next Kevin Durant, superstar, best player in the country. And he starts going, the AAU route. His dad builds this prep school in Ypsilanti. And you just wonder if he would have just stayed at his high school, played MHSAA basketball, at what school did he go to? I forget.
Ypsilanti Lincoln.
Yeah. If he would have stayed there, fine coaching, his coaching staff there was fine, developed his skills there. You just wonder if he would have been a little better. I mean, people are talking, he might not even be a first round draft pick. He probably will be just because of the potential. But yeah, I understand why people go play AAU because, like you said, Ted, you feel like you're going to get left behind. If you don't play these AAU sports, you feel like you're not going to make the team, come the school season. And that's a whole other issue. So it is. It's a problem.
So it's weird because, dude, like that's what I mean. Like Amani Bates, I remember if I've told the story on the pod before, where I was getting like a police escort into this guy's games. Like it's a high schooler. Kid was 15 years old, and there's like people are like basically about to start a riot to get into this damn game. And then you see like hear stories where like LeBron couldn't get into LaMelo versus Zion, some AAU game like 6-7 years ago. It's gotten way too big. I remember I only played at AAU 1 year, and it's just it's weird. You realize all the costs that start adding up. The hotels, you're probably driving at least 30 minutes to practice twice a week. You have to get jerseys. You gotta get shoes. Like everything starts adding up. The constant driving all over the Midwest, pretty much. I think it's a good thing in general. For mostly it's a good thing. But I feel like within the last like 10 years, or probably more like 5 years, it's became more of like just like bragging about you like playing AAU like to your buddies. And it was sort of like that like when I was a kid, where I felt like people really only did it. Like girls would play for this AAU team in Shiawassee County, and it was like they would be wearing the jerseys around school or whatever, like how cool it was. I think it's more turning into that for the kids to brag about them being on the team, and for the parents to go around bragging about how much they spend on this kid's like travel ball, and to say that this kid plays. And I remember talking to my dad. This was like when I was right in the middle of playing. I was like kind of, disheveled after one tournament because AAU, I mean, it's like, it's like basically all these kids go from being the star player on their own team. And then you go to basically be like a 15 guy star player team for, your county or whatever. And so there would be like certain tournaments where, it was like I was playing for a college coach, where if I made a mistake, I was basically benched for the rest of the game, like without questions asked or something like that. And I was dealing with that, like kind of struggling with it as a little kid. And I remember my dad basically saying to me, like, man, can you imagine if all this time you spent going to these tournaments, driving to practice, basically just scrimmaging in practice, trying to get gelled as a team. Like it wasn't like we were doing drill work, basically just scrimmaging, trying to get used to each other. Imagine if all that time you did, if you just dedicated to individual skill work, like a Steph Curry or something. And I still remember him saying that to me. It made a lot of sense. My only rebuttal to that would be like, the very next, year, did I go and do that? No. Like when I was a kid, was I going to go sit in a gym and do a bunch of individual individual drill work? No. Right. So I guess my only argument would be it's better to have them in this AAU circuit than just sitting at home playing video games. But I do think it really could be improved. I mean, I've seen the coaching at these tournaments, man. You're seeing videos of coaches like strangling referees. Like that's the type of coaching these kids are getting. Well,
right. So this is why, we could do a whole podcast on it. That's a whole other topic, is the coaching in AAU. I mean, the three of us know that, your dad was a phenomenal coach, but like a lot of the high school coaches aren't the ones coaching these AAUs. It's just some like dude. It's some dad who's reliving his glory days because he played ball back in the day. So he thinks he can coach. And so that's a whole other issue, is the coaching and like leadership that these kids are getting in AAU. There's probably some that are phenomenal coaches. So it's not everyone, but you see those videos of some dude just going off on the refs or going off on other parents. And it's like, this is not the leadership these kids should be getting. You talk about like the bragging part. I think a lot of it is social media. Like, they're trying to get famous on social media, to say like they played in this AAU tournament. So, they want to try and get all this, hype on social media.
Here's my highlight tape.
Here's my highlight tape. It's just, it's crazy.
I remember. The last thing I'll say on this. The perfect way to do this is, I remember back when Coach Mitchell ran Lanesburg. Actually, Lanesburg would put together they would just take their varsity basketball team and go and play in these, Grand Rapids Storm tournaments. They would go and basically play as if they were an AAU team. And if you remember, that was the team that almost beat Flint Beecher.
They had them beat.
Morris, and if they had them beat, very good team. I remember going to this tournament, watching my brother. He played for this Lansing Triple Threat AAU team, and I remember watching this Lanesburg team beat this Lansing super team. And I remember, man, like, what a great program that is. That's exactly what you should be doing. They played like a team. They were basically just playing like their normal game while all these other teams are playing AAU street ball. And I remember they were going on like a magical run through the tournament. Like, that still sticks in my head. Like, how cool is that this team, they did it the right way. That's what more programs should be doing.
I don't even want to.
Sorry, that's what we did. When I mentioned the Flint League, it was our varsity team. We went and played in the Flint League, and we were playing a bunch of teams that were, you got 2 dudes from Flint Central, 2 dudes from Flint Northwestern, 2 dudes from Southwestern came together for this super team. And we're just playing with our varsity team, and we're smoking all these cool. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I don't even want to stop this conversation. There's so many ways we could go with this. I mean, really. I mean, one point I want to make, and I got somebody tweeted to me. They were asking about a local high school basketball program, why they've struggled so much. And I didn't really have a specific answer for them, but along the topics that we're talking about, AAU is a whole separate entity. But I think, and you guys can agree or disagree, but the successful, I think, high school programs, whether it be basketball, whether it be football, baseball, whatever, the key word is program. And okay, you got to develop a program, and you got to have a varsity coach that is so sold into the system that they're putting in so much time with the 3rd and 4th graders right at the beginning. Saturday basketball, they're showing their face at the gym. They're directing whoever's coaching the teams, whether it be the high school varsity players or whoever it is. This is what I want you to do. Then that varsity coach is watching these young kids. He can see who has the potential. He can see who maybe doesn't have the skill yet, but they could grow into it.
Yeah, right.
And they are, because we all know the kids that were junior high, middle school superstars that never panned out when they got older.
Me.
At
least in basketball.
I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody, but I'm just saying
you just stopped growing.
Yeah. I was like Draymond Green in middle school, man. Guard all 5 positions. I was the same height.
Yeah, all you Fattel boys are pretty good. That's for sure. But, the thing is, like, the point I'm making is a good, successful varsity coach has to run the youth program and put the time and effort into it. I'm not saying a lot don't, but then again, I am. I think the real successful ones, you can tell that they put the time into it, and they're organized, and they're successful. Yeah. That simple.
Yeah, I remember I had an eye-opening experience when I went to Grand Valley State, and we were talking before we recorded about Grand Rapids South Christian, the team that we lost in football in the playoffs and basketball in the playoffs to them. I mean, they were just a powerhouse. And I ended up going at Grand Valley, a few of the guys that played for those teams. So obviously, I was wearing Corona stuff. They're wearing Grand Rapids South Christian. So we're like, hey, we kind of start talking. And they laid it out. We started talking about our program. So we started talking about, whatever, all this stuff. And they laid it out for me that's how it was there. That all the way down to their like Pee Wee football, kicks football program, they're running the same offense.
Yeah.
It's obviously dumbed down quite a bit, but they're running the same route tree, the same, like terminology, the same blocking scheme all the way down to youth. So then like each level up to middle school, you insert some more. And then high school, by varsity, you're running the whole system. So by the time you get up to varsity, you know everything.
Right.
I mean, you're ready to go. And I'm not taking any shots because, I was happy with my experience at Corona, but we definitely, at least when I was there, we were not doing that at Corona. Yeah. And to the point where every year, freshman to JV to varsity, we were learning new offenses every summer. And again, I'm not taking any shots, but it's like, man, when you think back to that, you're spending half your summer trying to relearn a new offense. And, that maybe doesn't make that much sense. And then to that point too, when I went to work at Fox 17, I ended up over in Grand Rapids interviewing Lowell's legendary coach.
Gabe Dean, or Coach
Noel
Dean.
Noel
Dean. Yeah, we ended up interviewing him, and he said the same thing. We asked him, how is your program so successful, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, we run a system all the way down to Pee Wee football. So by the time they get to varsity, there's no teaching. You're just like inserting new plays and stuff. And it's just like, it's like, this is genius, but also like, it shouldn't be that difficult. I mean,
Yeah, I could actually speak to this exactly. So when Chris Curtis came into Corona, everybody started running the triple option all the way from from seniors till you were in third grade. So from the point where he came in, I think I was in like fifth grade up until I was a senior in high school, 12th grade, like we'd just been running the same offense for years. And you notice the difference because my brother's team, he was 4 years older than me. For those who don't know, we ran like the option offense, and basically it's pretty intricate where you got to make reads and stuff like that, where they were sophomores in high school still predetermining their reads. So basically, for example, instead of reading it during the play, they would call on the play like, hey, it's a triple option to the right. You're just going to give it or you're going to pull it. Whereas we were reading it from the time we were in like seventh grade. Right. And, it's just, you just like think all those extra reps you get, and it just made it so it's a lot easier to run when you're in high school. But this is our last thing on this segment. I'll throw this out there, and it's kind of a loaded question. Ted, I want your answer.
Oh boy.
And I'm 100% serious when I say this. Are kids in high school not as good at athletes as they were even, 10 years ago, even 15, 20 years ago? Like, and I know that sounds like me. I'm just like the cranky old man. Other than like, just like from watching high school football this past year, I felt like there was a few teams that were obviously very, very good. Detroit, MLK, DeWitt, where I'm like, they could play in, 1980, they could play in 2000. They're still going to be a very good team. But outside of those, I felt like just the overall average, like teams are shrinking in roster size. Less kids are playing, more kids are playing video games, doing whatever. I just feel like sports in general are down. At least that's my opinion.
It's hard to argue that. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but the way you just wrapped it up, the numbers are down. There are other things out there. Obviously, you've heard me bitch about it before, the whole video games and all that stuff that takes their time away from playing sports. And there is a lot of that. And a lot of the problem is also this extra organized AAU that we started this whole conversation with. Kids just don't want to put the time and effort into it because it's a lot of stress and there's no free time. And that's why they say, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and play Call of Duty because I don't have to stretch my mind. I can just let my mind relax a little bit. There's a lot of pressure that goes along with playing, organized sports. And I do think that we are in a cycle, and I'm not sure how to get out of it, but I think the participation, like I said, is down. I'm not going to say the skill level is necessarily different. It's hard for me to say that, but definitely the participation numbers are down, which definitely affects the product.
Yeah, I think, when people bring up the video games, I remember people saying that when I was a kid, because,
Yep.
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and, the PlayStation were out. So, I just remember parents saying that you guys are all wanting to play video games all the time. I think it's like, it's a balance of everything we've been talking about this whole time. Kids may be getting sick of, they don't want to be playing sports all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get sick of it. And then they just say, then fine, I'm not going to play. I'm just not going to do it. So, I think back to obviously growing up in Corona in the 90s and early 2000s, very different than a lot of other people's experiences. But I think a lot of people back then, I played sport. I was playing all the time in the summer camps, or, we had 7-on-7 football, the Flint League, all that stuff. But there were other people who, they worked on a farm, or, they did other stuff. But then when it came time for football or basketball or whatever, they were 100% committed, and they were great players because they weren't burned out. So you just wonder if there's, with the whole AAU discussion, if kids are just getting burned out on it and they're having more fun playing Fortnite and trying to get famous on TikTok than being committed to football. You wonder about that.
I think football, like, I can't explain why basketball isn't as, it just seems like there's not as many kids playing. I mean, it used to be able to easily fill out an A, B, and roster in middle school with make 20 cuts and still have 15 guys in each team. You don't see that nowadays. Football, it probably has a decent amount to do with, CTE and all that stuff. Maybe parents are being too cautious or not, but I'm not going to necessarily be mad at anybody who doesn't want their son to play due to those reasons. But other than that, I don't know. I think it's something that I experienced my whole life where, my brothers or whoever would say like our team sucked, like we would beat you. I feel like I'm kind of on like that side of the spectrum now, where just as soon as I graduated, I felt like, it's just like everything's better when I was a kid.
Right.
And I do think maybe that is the case, but I don't know. Just a gut feeling I have that kids aren't as good as they used to be.
I mean, we all know that the 2002 Corona Cavaliers football team is the best football team to ever go through
Right.
Corona. So,
Right.
that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff, fellas. I mean, I don't know. Let's just leave this part right there. I think we got a little bit of college basketball we want to get into next here on 3 Point Podcast, and we'll get back to that right after this. All right, guys, we'll start in college basketball. Of course, Michigan State, a big win on Saturday against Purdue. But yesterday, we're obviously Michigan Wolverine fans, and coming back to play yesterday, I thought they made a great comeback, obviously, but still, I have my concerns on the team's defense, giving up 93 yesterday. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think that's the biggest glaring weakness on this team. Their offense is obviously streaky, but their offense, I think, could be fine. Dickinson seems to be in a pretty good groove. You see what Caleb Houston can do. Jones is actually turning it around a little bit, but you see the glaring defense or weakness on defense without a guy like Franz Wagner, without a guy like Shondae Brown, even Isaiah Livers. I think Eli Brooks is really odd to me. Like, he was fantastic. He's been great his whole career. But like we said, I think we said it a few weeks ago, because he used to kind of be like the third or fourth guy. He's probably still having a solid career. I don't know like the defensive statistics, but I'm almost to the point of like, I'd rather see like Bufkin or Frankie Collins play over Eli Brooks, just because they're young and fast and energetic. And yeah, they're going to make, freshman mistakes, right. But you got to have Eli Brooks out there, especially come tournament time. He's a veteran, so he's not going to lose his time. But we've said it basically this whole season. I could see Michigan making a run, whether it's the Big Ten tournament or March Madness, and winning a few games, or I could see them losing their first game because they're cold, can't hit a three, and they lose. That's just what this team is this year.
Yeah, they're just not very good. I mean, we've talked about it, ad nauseum. I'm not going to lose sleep over them losing that game yesterday. In years past, I probably would have, but at the end of the day, I mean, really, what are we, holding out hope for this team that they can at best make it to the second weekend?
Yeah, I mean, second weekend. If they get the second weekend,
that's a bonus.
And really, at the end of the day, what does that even matter? I mean, we've seen it with Michigan basketball. I mean, we've made countless Final Fours and Elite Eights, and we still really don't even give a shit. If it's not the championship, it's whatever. So it's a sad thing. It's been a season from hell now with this whole Juwan story coming out and everything that's been involved. But we'll see. Hey, I mean, the only thing I'm holding out hope is it'd be pretty hilarious to see Juwan come back and this team somehow make a magical run through the Big Ten. But, I mean, like I said, I'm not holding my breath for that. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's the big story to me. I mean, I agree with you. Does this Michigan team get you all excited about potential national championship? No. But right now, I'm kind of really looking forward to the first game in the Big Ten tournament with Juwan coming back. It's very bizarre to me anyway, that the suspension was just for the rest of the regular season and he's back to coach them at the end of the year. I'm not so sure that was the greatest move, but it definitely has added a lot of drama coming up, and see what happens.
Yeah, it will be interesting, especially obviously if they end up playing Wisconsin in the, if it works out that they play them in the Big Ten tournament, that'd be pretty cool. But, with that, you mentioned Michigan State winning.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the Big Ten? Like, I see a lot of people talk about the conference that Gonzaga plays in and just how weak it is. And it is, top to bottom, it's not very good. They got upset by St. Mary's, and they seem to be a good team. But otherwise, top to bottom, their conference isn't very good. And people always talk about how great the Big Ten is. At any time, sometimes there's 6-7 teams in the top 25. And Purdue looks great. Michigan State was up, ranked high. And Wisconsin, Illinois. But whenever I see people like pump up the Big Ten as far as a basketball tournament, yes, top to bottom, it is a strong conference. But we've said it before. When's their last national title? Over 20 years ago.
Yeah,
right.
And how many times do we see this great Ohio State team get bounced in the second round? Even Michigan State has some crazy early exits. All of a sudden, Purdue is this is the Purdue team that's going to make a run. They don't even get to the Sweet 16. And yesterday, Purdue's top 5. Michigan State sliding, falls out of the top 25. Michigan State beats Purdue. So, do you think it shows that the Big Ten is good overall? Top to bottom, a bunch of really good teams, or actually they're just like a solid conference?
Well, it's weird. It's weird because we love the tournament. Is it the best way to crown like a true champion? No,
Probably
but
not.
It's still fun, and I still will agree. I still would never get rid of it. So I think that partially deals with it. But two, it's like, how long has the Big Ten been? I feel like this narrative that the Big Ten has been the best like basketball conference has been around for like 10 years. I feel like people have kind of accepted this ever since John Beilein kind of came on strong. But you guys know what my strategy has always been every March Madness. It's anti-Big Ten.
Right.
For me last year, other than a couple teams like Michigan State, Michigan, really, other than that, I basically pick everybody else to lose early and often. So I've always kind of thought this. I don't know what it is. It's because we don't ever really get the true top recruits. I mean, we had the number one recruiting class with Michigan, but that was more just because of we had a culmination of guys, not Chet Holmgren, not Jabari Smith. We don't really get those guys. And I think that's really, at the end of the day, that's really what kind of hurts us.
Don't you think, though, that and Matt said it too, the Big Ten is a strong conference, I think. Don't you think they're top 3 conference in America, even though they have,
I think arguably one, but but that's in terms of like top to bottom.
Right, top to bottom.
But in terms of just having elite, great teams like Villanova, Gonzaga, Baylor this last year, we just never really have had a team like that.
It's been a while.
Maybe the 1 or 2 years that Michigan with like Trey Burke was stacked.
Right.
Obviously, Michigan State has had a couple really good teams. I more think it's just the college basketball game in general, because if you don't say it's the Big Ten, then which conference is it? Because the ACC isn't like super powerful. The SEC isn't super powerful. Both of those are very top heavy. The Big East or some of the A-10, like some of these other conferences, it's not like they're just like crazy powerful, the Pac-12. So I think it's maybe like we've talked, like college basketball is just like spread out a lot now. You've got top recruits going to, Imani Bates went to Memphis and, Chet Holmgren went to Gonzaga. Gonzaga is obviously really good, but, teams are just like spread out. So it's just interesting. I like when I see people take shots at Gonzaga and then they bring up the Big Ten. Oh, if Gonzaga came to the Big Ten, they might not even make the tournament. I'm like, I think they'd be fine. Like, would they be the number 1 team in the country? Maybe not, but they're a really good team. I think they'd be all right. They would do fine against Nebraska and some of these other teams. But yeah, you kind of said it. As much as we love March Madness, it is kind of funny sometimes. Like the year that Zion and Duke lost to Michigan State. That Michigan State team was good, but that Duke team was like the best team all year. And then obviously they ended up losing. So it's like, is the tournament the best way to determine the best team in the country? Not necessarily.
And I will say,
sure, it's fun though.
What sucks is maybe Izzo's last legit shot at a title was the COVID year. That Michigan State team was loaded. They beat Michigan. We saw those defeats. Michigan was a great team that year. Sweet 16, I think they ended up making it. Yeah. And State just beat us by like 3 games in a row that year. And it was a different heartbreaker almost every time. But no, so I think that the fact that we lost that was a elite team that had a legit chance. And the fact that they never got a chance, who knows, that Big Ten streak could have ended that year for all we know.
Did you guys watch the Michigan State game on Saturday by chance?
In and out a little bit.
In and out, yeah. They it was a classic Tom Izzo bounce back game, wasn't it? Coming off a humiliating loss to Iowa, but he said we're going to make some changes. They were kind of subtle, but they were ready to play, and you could tell that he coached them up after that loss. I know I'm the Izzo booster here on this podcast. He's a fantastic coach, and he knows how to coach a team and get them their mindset right. He's a good X and O's coach. He's as good as they get coming out of timeouts. I don't know.
We'll see. I don't know. I think that team is really underachieved this year. We saw it, at least, after that Michigan game, I was like, man, this team's going to win, get close to 23, 24 wins. I thought they've lost 6 in a row until they beat Purdue. I don't know. I think Izzo's a great coach, but I wouldn't say this is one of his best jobs. We saw Michigan beat Purdue. It's just the way the Big Ten is. I don't really put too much credence in those wins. You're gonna get a big win when you play these ranked teams every week. You're gonna win one somewhere along the road.
Yeah, well, fair points for sure. And here we are recording this on the last day of February, March, baby. It's right around the corner, and we got Michigan State coming up Tuesday night, don't we? It should be an interesting contest.
It should be, and it's at Chrysler, so that helps. And I almost feel like this is especially with Michigan's loss yesterday. This is like almost like a season defining game for Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
If they can win this game, and even if they, kind of flame out in the tournament, at least they can say they split with Michigan State,
Yeah.
But if they lose this, they go 0-2 versus Michigan State and say they get bounced in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, then this looks like a pretty disappointing season. But it's a big one for Michigan because they're still kind of on the bubble. I think
Right.
Michigan State's pretty well set. So it's almost like whoever wins that game on Tuesday is probably good to go.
Yeah,
for the tournament.
100%.
And whoever loses, you're starting to flirt with the bubble. So it's a big game for both teams.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a fun one to watch for sure, and we'll see what happens. But I don't think either of our schools probably will go too far in the tournament anyway.
I tell you what, I am rooting for Michigan to be in the play-in tournament or the play-in game. Give us a little bit extra juice on that Tuesday night. Basically in our world, that tournament 100% starts on Tuesday, just like it did last year with the Michigan State game. So that's one good thing that could come from this bad team.
That is a legit comment there, because I usually don't pay much attention to the first games there unless Michigan State or Michigan's in it. So that's a good point. Yeah. All right. I think that's enough on college basketball. Let's wrap up this podcast right after this. All right, guys, before we sign off, we started to talk about it a little bit at the beginning because of my recording woes, but we're going to see if we can maybe hook up with a couple former Cavaliers and Coach John Fattel of Freeland and Kyle Clough for Rockford up down the road here. But I had a chance to watch Freeland up close and personal on Saturday night, and John's got a nice team there. They have a pretty solid team. I look for them to finish the regular season undefeated. You never know what can happen in the tournament, but he's got a nice squad.
It's an exciting. There's nothing quite like getting ready for a high school basketball run. Matt had a great run back when he was in high school. There's just I remember when my brother's team, they won like 6 games. The next thing you know, they're in the regional final. Like, they made a magical run that season. So it's cool to see, and I'm just jealous, man. I never had the opportunity. I watch it every year in March Madness. My team's never made it out of districts. So I'm jealous for anyone that has the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Do you got any intel on young John? What's got him to this success? And it's his 3rd year right now. Is it just a matter of he got the kids in the program,
Well, they got a lot of young kids that have been, they have a few different players that have been up on varsity since they were sophomores. And anytime you do that, by the time they're seniors, they're as senior laden as you can be. And they're a great offensive team. They got a great scheme. They run this sort of like Princeton style offense.
Right. Then
it really helps when you have 3 different guys that can really shoot the rocks. So no, they're about as good offensively as you'll see from a high school team. And they're fun to watch. They're a great team. There's no one player that that's just dominating. It's a really collective team effort. So no, they're a lot of fun to watch, and we'll see come tournament time. They have a team that they can get hot on any night. I think they could beat just about anyone in Class B. They're definitely going to need their best game to do that, but it'll be fun to watch for sure.
It's that Corona coaching tree, right?
Yep.
Heck yeah. I will say this.
that never come to Corona. It's kind of hilarious.
Well, Kyle started at Corona.
It was a pretty good job of scheduling too. Pewamo, Westphalia, which has a tremendous athletic program in both football and basketball, playing them in their gym, as we get ready for March here. That was a good test for them. That was probably Freeland's toughest test on the season, I think, real close to it.
Yeah, Pewamo's good every year in every sport. That's what we were talking about, building a program. If I'm trying to build a high school program, where I'm going 45 minutes up the road to Pewamo, Westphalia. And what can you remind me on the coach's name for football at least?
Boy. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
I interview him like every week.
I thought he was going to say basketball, and that's Dominic Schneider. But
there
football.
You go. All right, Matt, we'll talk. I can't say the same thing about the basketball program, but it's still a good program for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for putting me on the spot there. No problem.
I thought you would. I didn't even think I was putting you on the spot. I figured you knew that just like it was your friend. I thought, but Smith, I believe, is his name.
I think you're right. Good save. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, we are wrapping up the podcast. Just one final comment. We haven't really talked about it. I'm not going to get political or anything, but it's too bad what's going on in Europe right now with Russia and Ukraine. And one thing you got to say, you got to have a lot of respect for the Ukraine president coming from the entertainment world. We know another president that did. We'll just leave it there. But he came from being a comedian, actually was the champion of Ukraine's version of Dancing with the Stars. and now he's rallied the citizens and the troops to fight against the evil enemy and Vladimir Putin. So, any follow-up comments, or just want to leave it there?
I'll just say, I mean, yeah, horrible what's going on. It's scary. It's scary. If I'm being honest, I mean, I'm in the draft age where, you know, if somehow, some way it did turn into that, I would probably be going. But no, it's the one thing that's kind of just weird to me, and it's cool. It's not cool isn't the right word, but it's weird seeing a war play out in like the media generation, where I'm seeing it like even, you know, the biggest story I felt like coming out of Ukraine was this Ghost to Kyiv, you know, fighter pilot that was taking down these Russian planes, and I just read yesterday that was entirely fake.
Totally believe that. Yeah.
So it's weird, and you don't know what to believe. So it's weird to see it play out that way, but no, it's 100% horrible what's going on over there.
Yeah, I saw something the other day about what you're just talking about, Jared, how different and cool it is in the social media age, getting to see stuff basically in real time, but also the other side of it, you have to be able to see like what's real and what's not, because of a lot of it is fake. Because actually, we've talked about Ted getting on TikTok. I ended up watching a bunch of reporters and stuff like when the invasion first started happening, when it was all getting going. People were like streaming it live on TikTok, and people were like, who knew that TikTok would be the place to go watch all of this unfold? And it's kind of crazy, you know, to think about that. It is definitely insane. I was just watching, and my wife laughs at me sometimes. I turn on the Today Show or Good Morning America sometimes in the morning, and I'm like, God, how old am I getting? But so I turned it on, Good Morning America, this morning, and they're talking about it, obviously, and they're talking about all the people fleeing Ukraine and, you know, going to Poland and other countries, and it just made me think, like, kind of what you're saying, Jared. Like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. It makes you kind of thankful that, like, here in the U.S., I mean, we have a ton of our other issues, but we haven't had to deal with something like that, you know, and to feel like you have to leave because there's a war going on in your country, you know, it would just be kind of crazy to be like, I've got to flee to Canada, or, you know, I've got to flee to Mexico or something like that. Like, it was just, you know, watching it was just like, I can't even imagine like what that mindset would be. But you know,
one comment I will make on something Ted said. Ted, I remember you said something along the lines of, "Hey, let's not send any troops. Let's just fund them with weapons." Do you know how the U.S. got into World War II? It's exactly that. And then the Japanese. So I guess it's kind of just nothing. I shouldn't have even said that. I was just basically throwing your whole point in the trash. But.
Well, I was going to let you expound on that. Why don't you continue on and explain that whole situation about World War II?
I think he was trying to say that you're supporting World War III.
No, I'm basically just saying that you can't be supplying supplies to the enemy of Russia and just not expect that you're just not a part of the war. It will 100%, if it does dive into something that bad, it would come back and bite us. I guess.
Don't you think we're doing the same thing when we're putting all these financial sanctions on Russia and all
well,
that?
That's
it's the same thing.
I'm not saying
what are you supposed to do?
I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. It's just, it's funny how we're just kind of watching like history repeat itself in that way, where it's, I mean, we've seen it before. Yeah,
well, we are. And if you think about how it is, because again, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but we all know about Adolf Hitler. And if you don't think Putin's kind of along the same mold, you haven't been paying attention. He has his finger right on that button, and that's the scariest part to me, because if things don't go well for him in Ukraine, and God bless those people for standing up for their country and fighting back. I mean, I'll just come full circle on this. We've dealt with this COVID thing, and we thought, oh, this is the worst thing ever and all this, but just think how lucky we are every day to live in real, true freedom, and we can get in our car, go do what we want, whatever. We don't have to worry about getting bombed or shot at. And those poor people, you know, what they say, up to 60 years old, the guys had to stay home so they could fight for their country. And my God, can you even think about and fathom that? It's just unreal. Yeah. So anyway, we'll leave it there. We'll lighten it up a little bit and just give a preview for next time on Z92.5. Just want to tell you about, we got high school basketball coming up Thursday night, March 3rd. That's Corunna at St. John's. And then I'm going to be real busy next week, as I'll have at least 4 district basketball games. We're going to be planted in the Corunna gym for March Magic, as they like to call it here in the state of Michigan.
Make sure that recorder's working.
Well, that'll be live. I'll figure something out for sure. Don't forget, follow us at 3 Point Pod. Let our partners know you listen in and enjoy the program. They include Crow Real Estate and Auction, Rivals Tap House and Grill, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, The Wash of Owasso, the ALS Association of Michigan, and Z92.5 The Castle. Until next time, so long, everyone, and bye for now.